Every time someone around you becomes wealthy, you lose something, not money, an opportunity, because the decision that made them rich, the real one, was made in silence. And by the time you noticed, it was already too late to learn from it. Think about the last time someone around you became wealthy. Not a celebrity, not a billionaire you read about online, someone real, someone you knew personally, a friend, a colleague, someone who started in almost exactly the same place as you, same city, same opportunities, same starting point. Then one day, something changed. A better home, more freedom, less stress. Money appeared from somewhere you could never quite see. Now ask yourself one question. Did they ever sit down with you and explain exactly how they did it? Step by step, decision by decision. No, they didn't. Maybe they smiled. Maybe they said, "I just worked hard," or "I got lucky." But deep down, you knew that wasn't the whole story. So your mind filled the gap. They had connections. They knew the right people. They were in the right place. Because those explanations protect something more important than truth. They protect your ego. They stop you from asking a much more dangerous question. What if they simply understood something you were never taught? Not a secret investment, not insider information, not a magical business formula. A principle, one so uncomfortable, most people reject it the first time they hear it. And because they reject it, they repeat the same financial mistakes for the rest of their lives. Here is what makes this devastating. Throughout history, the people who built enormous wealth almost never explained the process. While they were still building it, they explained it afterwards. If they explained it at all, that wasn't arrogance. That wasn't selfishness. That was the strategy itself. 500 years ago, a man named Niccolò Machiavelli noticed exactly the same pattern. He watched princes, bankers, generals, merchants. Some rose from nothing. Others lost everything. After years of observation, he realized something almost nobody else had noticed. The people who survived shared one habit. They moved quietly. While everyone else announced their ambitions, they were building them. While everyone else wanted recognition, they wanted results. While everyone else was talking, they were positioning. And by the time the world understood what they had built, it was already too late to stop them. That pattern has never disappeared. It still operates today. The clothes have changed. The battlefield is different. But human nature is exactly the same. For the next 22 minutes, I want to show you something hidden inside 500 years of history. Not theory, not motivation, a pattern. One that connects Renaissance bankers, modern billionaires, and almost every wealthy person you have ever met. Because once you see this pattern, you cannot unsee it. And the moment you stop announcing is the moment you start building.
Part 1. The Tooth in Florence. Most people think wealth is built by working harder.
They are half right. Wealth is built by working harder and protecting the work from everyone watching. Florence, 1420. Two men were building financial empires in exactly the same city. Both brilliant, both ambitious, both wealthy beyond imagination. Yet history remembered only one of them. The first was Strozzi. If you lived in Florence, you already knew his name. His palace dominated the skyline. His banquets became public spectacles. His art collection was unmatched. His generosity was legendary. Everywhere he went, people whispered about his fortune. He was the most visible wealthy man in all of Renaissance Europe, and that was exactly the problem. The second man was Cosimo de' Medici. Unlike Strozzi, Cosimo almost disappeared into the crowd. He dressed like a merchant, walked like a merchant, spoke softly, rarely boasted. If you judged wealth by appearances, you would never have guessed. He controlled banks across an entire continent. Kings borrowed from him. Popes depended on him. Entire governments survived because of his money. Yet most ordinary people barely noticed him walking through the streets, because Cosimo understood something almost nobody else understood. Visibility attracts attention, and attention attracts resistance. Now fast forward 20 years. Strozzi is in exile, stripped of everything. His enemies knew exactly where his assets were, exactly how his empire was structured, exactly which relationships held his power. When the political winds shifted, they didn't need to investigate. They already had the complete map. They dismantled him piece by piece, asset by asset, relationship by relationship. The richest man in Florence became a forgotten exile, not because he lacked intelligence, because he lacked invisibility. Cosimo. His empire had expanded across every major city in Europe. His family held power for 3 more generations. His enemies never found the map, because he never drew one. Machiavelli watched this pattern repeat, again and again, across 14 years inside the Florentine government. Different rulers, different cities, different battles, exactly the same outcome. The loudest empire always collapsed first. The quietest empire always survived longest. That single observation became one of the hidden foundations of the prince. Not because silence is moral, not because silence is humble, because silence protects power. Now, stop thinking about Florence. Think about your own life. How many people know your next financial goal? How many know the business you want to start? The investment you're making? The skill you're quietly learning? Now ask yourself something harder. What did telling them actually create? Did your bank account grow? Did your investment perform better? Did your business suddenly appear? Probably not, but something else happened. Your brain received applause before it received results. And that is exactly where the trap begins, part 2. The check your future hasn't earned. Most people think motivation comes from encouragement. It doesn't. Motivation comes from hunger. And the fastest way to destroy hunger is to feed it early. Here is something modern psychology eventually discovered that Machiavelli spent his life observing. When you publicly announce a goal, your brain quietly cashes a check your future hasn't earned yet. Think about a marathon runner. Imagine they receive the trophy before the race begins. The applause, the photographs, the congratulations. How many of them would still run 42 kilometers with the same intensity? Because part of the reward has already been collected. Wealth works exactly the same way. Research from New York University found something extraordinary. When people publicly declare an identity, I'm starting a business, I'm building wealth, I'm creating something big, the social recognition they receive creates what psychologists call a social reality of identity. Your brain begins treating you as someone who has already moved toward the goal. The dopamine arrives early, before the work is done, before the result exists. And here is what makes this so expensive. Dopamine is the motivation chemical. It drives you forward. When it arrives early, the drive weakens. Be honest with yourself right now. Think about the last goal you announced publicly. Did you achieve it? If not, when exactly did you stop working on it? Was it after the initial encouragement faded? After the comments stopped? After nobody asked about it anymore? That is your brain, working exactly as it was designed. The announcement became the substitute for the achievement. Machiavelli never used the word dopamine. He didn't need to. He simply observed that rulers who sought recognition too early almost always weakened themselves before the real battle began. The first brutal law of the Silence Code: never collect the reward before earning the result. Because the moment applause becomes your fuel, silence starts feeling like failure. And when silence feels like failure, you stop building. Long before success arrives. Part 3. The day silence defeated an army. Most people think power comes from strength. Cesare Borgia proved it comes from information. There is a reason Machiavelli admired one man above almost every ruler he ever studied. Not because he was kind, not because he was moral, because he demonstrated something terrifying about the true nature of power. His name was Cesare Borgia, and what he did in 1502 still decides who wins every negotiation happening right now. By late 1502, Borgia's empire looked stronger than ever. His enemies feared him. His allies respected him. At least, that is what everyone believed. Behind closed doors, 4 of his most trusted commanders had secretly formed an alliance to destroy him. These were not strangers. These were the men who had fought beside him, who had grown wealthy because of him. Together, their combined military strength exceeded his own. A direct confrontation would almost certainly end his empire. Most rulers would have done what pride demanded. Confront them, threaten them, declare war. That would have been the obvious move, and it would have been the last move they ever made. Borgia chose silence. He acted as though nothing had happened. No accusations, no speeches, no displays of anger. Instead, he sent each commander a personal letter, warm, respectful, almost humble. He invited them to meet privately, to rebuild trust, to restore unity. Every letter carried one hidden message: I know nothing. That was exactly what they wanted to believe. They arrived in the town of Sinigalia, without weapons, without suspicion, smiling, completely certain they had already won. The meeting began peacefully. Then, the doors closed. Hidden soldiers appeared from every entrance. Within minutes, the conspiracy was over. Without a battlefield, without a long campaign, without giving his enemies a single moment to react, Machiavelli was there. He watched it unfold. And years later, he described it as the greatest demonstration of strategic power he had ever witnessed. Not because Borgia had more soldiers, because he controlled information better than everyone else in the room. Now translate this directly to your own financial life. Think about the last salary negotiation you had. Your employer knew your current income. They knew your lifestyle. They knew whether you had real alternatives. They set every offer based on the minimum you would accept without walking away. They didn't do this with malice. They did this with information you gave them. The person who tells their manager, I really need this raise, my rent went up, has just handed over the most powerful card in their hand. The person who walks in, knowing what the market pays, knowing what the company can offer, knowing their real alternatives, but revealing none of it, is Borgia at Sinigalia. They already know the outcome before the conversation begins. The second brutal law of the Silence Code: the less people know about your next move, the fewer moves they can make against you. Read that again. Because that single principle explains why some people seem impossible to stop. It isn't luck, it isn't genius, it's positioning. They arrive before anyone realizes the race has started. Part 4. The empire that made information into gold. If I asked you what made Venice the wealthiest republic in history, most people would say ships, trade routes, geography. They would all be wrong. Venice became unbeatable for nearly 5 centuries because of one thing nobody talks about. They understood that information compounds faster than money. Imagine standing on the docks of Venice in the 15th century. Ships arriving from Constantinople, Alexandria, India, Northern Europe. Every vessel carries silk, spices, gold. But none of those things are Venice's greatest asset. Its greatest asset is knowing something before everyone else. Which ships have arrived, which routes are dangerous, which merchants are desperate, which kingdoms are running low. That information changes prices before the market even realizes anything has happened. And whoever knows first, profits first. The Venetian Council of 10 understood this better than anyone alive. Their meetings were conducted in complete secrecy, not because they enjoyed mystery, because every piece of information leaked became someone else's opportunity. Imagine announcing every move in a game of chess before making it. Your opponent would never need to guess. They would simply prepare. That is exactly what most people do with their financial lives. I'm starting a new business. I'm investing in this. I'm launching something next month. Every announcement gives the world more time to react. Some people copy you. Some compete against you. Some discourage you. Almost nobody helps you. The attention feels valuable. The information you surrendered was far more valuable. Think about 2 investors. Both discover the same opportunity. The first cannot resist talking about it. Friends hear, family hears, social media hears. Within weeks, everyone is discussing it. Prices rise. Competition increases. The opportunity shrinks. The second investor says nothing. They keep buying quietly, month after month. No excitement, no announcements, no audience. By the time the investment becomes obvious, their position is already complete. One collected attention, the other collected assets. This is why experienced investors sound almost boring. When people ask, "What are you buying?" they change the subject. They smile. They say, "I'm focused on the long term." People think they're being secretive. No, they are protecting the value of information. Because once information becomes public, its value begins to disappear. Wealth is usually created long before it becomes visible. People only notice the harvest. They never see the years spent planting. Part 5, the enemy living inside your mind. There is one enemy of wealth that nobody warns you about. It doesn't live in the economy. It doesn't live in the markets. It doesn't live in banks or governments. It lives inside your own mind. And if you cannot defeat it, nothing else in this video will matter. That enemy is the desire to be seen. Human beings have always wanted recognition. Long before money existed, recognition meant survival. If the tribe respected you, you were protected. If they admired you, you had influence. Your brain still operates by those ancient rules. Even though the modern world has changed completely. Today, recognition doesn't increase your survival, but your brain still craves it, as if it does. That is why people announce promotions, post expensive holidays, display luxury watches, celebrate every milestone publicly, not because it creates wealth, because it creates attention, and attention feels almost identical to success. Almost, but not quite. Machiavelli noticed this weakness centuries before psychology ever existed. He watched rulers spend fortunes trying to look powerful. Larger palaces, more extravagant celebrations, more expensive clothing. The audience was impressed. Their enemies were even more impressed, because every display revealed exactly what needed to be attacked. The stronger someone tried to appear, the easier they became to understand. And the easier they were to understand, the easier they were to defeat. Real power rarely advertises itself. It doesn't need to. There are two forms of wealth. The first is visible: luxury cars, designer clothes, large houses. The second is invisible: cash flow, ownership, negotiating power, options, freedom. One attracts applause, the other creates freedom. Most people spend their lives chasing the first, because everyone can see it. The wealthy quietly build the second, because it pays forever. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. If nobody could ever see your success, would you still want it? If nobody applauded your promotion, would you still work for it? If nobody knew your investment portfolio, would you still build it? If the answer is no, you may not be chasing wealth, you may be chasing validation. Those are two completely different games. One makes you richer, the other simply makes you louder. The third brutal law of the Silence Code: the more your identity depends on attention, the harder it becomes to build lasting wealth. Because wealth demands something attention never will: patience. Years of invisible effort, months where nothing impressive happens, weeks where nobody notices your progress. The person addicted to recognition quits during those months. The person addicted to results keeps building, and when success finally becomes visible, the world calls it overnight. Part 6, the mystery that moves money. Most people think the loudest person in the room has the most power. The quietest person usually controls it. There is one final lesson that separates ordinary success from lasting influence. It has nothing to do with money, nothing to do with talent, everything to do with one question: can people predict your next move? Because the moment they can, they begin planning against it. Machiavelli spent years observing one of the most powerful leaders in Renaissance Europe, Pope Julius II. He wasn't the richest, he wasn't the strongest military commander, yet kings, generals, and entire kingdoms constantly adjusted their strategies around him. Why? Because nobody could confidently predict what he would do next. One month he formed alliances. The next month he dissolved them. One year he negotiated peace. The next year he marched into battle. His decisions appeared random, but they weren't random. they were impossible to calculate, and that made him the most dangerous man in Europe. Machiavelli noticed something extraordinary. People fear strength, but they fear uncertainty even more. You can prepare for a powerful opponent. You cannot prepare for an unpredictable one, because preparation requires information. Without information, every decision becomes a gamble. Think about the most respected person you have ever worked alongside. Did they constantly try to impress people? Or did they speak carefully, act deliberately, and reveal only what was necessary? Almost certainly the second. Because genuine confidence never feels the need to perform, it simply exists. This is where most people make an expensive mistake. They believe transparency always builds trust. Not exactly. Honesty builds trust. Oversharing creates vulnerability. There is a difference. You can be completely honest without revealing every strategy, every ambition, every financial decision, and every future plan. Machiavelli never argued for deception. He argued for discipline. The discipline to understand that information has value, and once you give it away, you can never own it again. The fourth brutal law of the Silence Code. The most predictable person in the room is usually the easiest person to defeat. The strongest position is not always the loudest. Sometimes it is the one nobody notices until the outcome has already been decided. Part 7. This is the only story that truly matters. Because this time, the man living the Silence Code had lost absolutely everything, and what he built from nothing outlasted every empire around him. 1512, Florence. Everything Machiavelli had spent 14 years building disappeared in a matter of days. The Medici returned to power. The government collapsed, was dismissed, arrested, tortured, then exiled. A small farmhouse outside Florence. No political office, no influence, no income worth mentioning. To the outside world, his life was finished. Most people would have spent the rest of their lives talking about what they once were. Machiavelli did something different. He stayed silent. Every morning, he worked the farm. His hands became dirty. His clothes became ordinary. To anyone passing, he looked like another forgotten man. But every evening, he changed into his formal robes, walked into his small study, opened the books of ancient Rome, and began writing. Not because anyone asked him to, not because anyone was watching, because the most valuable thing he owned had never been visible. It lived inside his mind. Everything they took from him was external. His title, his position, his influence. But they could not confiscate his understanding. They could not seize 14 years of careful observation. They could destroy the man. They could not destroy what the man knew. Months later, that invisible wealth became a manuscript, written for no audience, no publisher, no guarantee anyone would ever read it. That manuscript became The Prince. 5 centuries later, governments still study it, military academies still analyze it, business leaders still quote it, investors still debate it. The thing that changed history was created after his visible success disappeared. Think about that. That is the final lesson of the Silence Code. Real wealth is never the thing people can see. The house can disappear, the business can fail, the title can be taken away. But judgment, discipline, knowledge, the ability to recognize opportunity, the ability to remain patient, those things cannot be stolen. And those are the assets that create every other asset. Most people spend years protecting appearances. The wealthy spend years protecting capability, because capability can always create new wealth. Appearance usually cannot. Before this video ends, I want you to do one thing. Think about the biggest financial goal you are working toward right now. Now ask yourself honestly, how many people genuinely need to know about it? Not how many want to know. How many actually need to? The answer is probably fewer than you think, because every unnecessary opinion creates unnecessary pressure. Every unnecessary expectation creates unnecessary distraction. And every unnecessary distraction slows compounding. From to try something different. Build quietly, learn quietly, invest quietly, improve quietly. Let your habits remain invisible until your results become impossible to ignore. Don't announce the plan, announce the outcome. Don't chase attention, chase freedom. because applause fades. Freedom compounds. Strozzi wanted the world to see his greatness. History barely remembers him. Cosimo de' Medici quietly built an empire. The Medici name shaped Europe for centuries. Cesare Borgia won battles before they began. Because his opponents never knew enough. Venice became rich because it treated information like treasure. Machiavelli lost everything visible and created something immortal from everything invisible. 500 years later, the pattern has not changed. The poor announce progress. The wealthy announce results. History never forgot the Medici. Nobody remembers the men who announced their way into bankruptcy. 5 years from today, people will either remember your announcements or they will never remember them at all, because they will be too busy noticing your results. History never rewards the loudest builder. It rewards the one nobody noticed until it was already too late. So the next time you feel the urge to tell someone your next move, remember this. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is the highest form of confidence, because the people truly building a fortune rarely have time to convince anyone they're doing it. They are too busy creating it. Fortune belongs to the bold, and the bold move in silence.